Thanks, Bill, for joining me.
My pleasure.
Bill, maybe if you could talk about what's coming up here in the fall. I know busy time here, I know, with the software program that's coming on board here, and then also the 2018 budget preparation.
Yeah, those are two biggies. We went live on the software end. We went live with the new general ledger back in the beginning of July, so we're still ironing out some of the kinks there and getting used to the new process, which is, it takes a significant amount of time because you're basically reinventing all your business processes. And as much as we trained leading up to the go live, it's always just a little bit different when it's live. The fact that precision is necessary when you're talking about the money. You want to make sure everything reconciles, everything's falling in the right bucket. So it's a significant amount of time that everyone's having to invest to make sure it's right, but they're doing a good job. And now, on October 1, we're going to go live with the Payroll and HR module. So everything we did on the GL side, which is our chart of accounts, our financial reporting, revenues, expenses, balance sheets, all of that, the Payroll HR side is everything we do for all of our active and retired employees. That's going to change and go over to the new system. So we're planning for it now. We go live October 1, and we anticipate the same type of learning curve over the last quarter of the year, just getting things ironed out. And I can say that we've run 2 different parallel payrolls, and they come out within a couple dollars of the actual payroll, so we're confident going into it that it's going to be relatively smooth. But inevitably there'll be some things that we have to work out. So we're getting ready to go on that, and at the same time we're working on the 2018 budget, which is a pretty large task in and of itself. You layer on top of that a whole new set of accounts and trying to budget for those in the new software, and so there's a learning curve there too. But we're working on it, and we'll figure it out, and we'll get your recommended budget to the board when it needs to be there, and we'll start the process.
Well, and I know that process, it just doesn't happen overnight. That's something that I know began back in August, and usually back in July, usually the conversation begins, and then August, the preliminary work begins. So it's a process that just doesn't happen overnight, and a lot of work I know you start on and starting to put a lot of the framework together for that.
Sure. Yeah. Really, I mean, the budget process is always going throughout the year. For the first 6 months, we're working on the current year's budget, making sure that things are where they need to be, and tracking how we think we're going to end the year. And then, as you noted, the last 6 months of the year, we're not only monitoring the current budget, but we're building the next year's. So it's an all-the-time process. It just it spikes up in the fall because that's when it's publicly discussed. That's when it's in front of the board. We'll have public hearings, and ultimately that's when it'll get adopted.
Well, and just back briefly to the software, I know back in 2010, the township, when we were coming in, a lot of audit issues, 30 plus findings, and that working with Carfax, the board, we're able to get that down to only 1 now, and that's a minor issue, and that deals with the software. I believe with the software now, our anticipation is going into the audit next year that our hope is that one will be addressed, and our hope is that we will have a clean audit for the first time in a very, very long time in the township here.
Well, that's absolutely true. Yeah,
0 now.
Yeah, with 2010, there were, like you said, 30 plus. 6 of those were material, which those are the ones you never want. And if you do have them, you address them immediately. But yeah, like you said, we've got that narrowed down to 1. We've had this one lingerer for the last couple of years as we've worked on the software. Whenever the auditors come in, you go into it with the anticipation that they could find something that is, after all, what they're looking to do is through their testing procedures. If there is anything there to report it. Our goal is always to have 0 new findings. We've achieved that goal the last 3 years. Well, actually, we haven't had a new finding since 2011. And even the new finding then was resolved by the next year. It would be nice to have 0 comments in the management letter. That's always our goal. But if there is something that is noted, I can assure you and the board and all the residents that those things are taken very seriously and are addressed immediately.
Sure.
But the one other note with that is the difference between an audit comment and the opinion letter. The township has had an unqualified opinion letter in each of the years, dating back even before 2010. The audit comment conversation is a separate letter that the auditors issue to management noting deficiencies that they found, but that you could still have a clean opinion letter and have audit comments. So we have had the clean opinion letter, and as we've just talked about, the comment side, we've got that just about wrapped up.
Right, good. And that's something that I think, I know when we had started and with CBFAC and then even with CARFAC, there were things that were put in place to make sure that you have CARFAC looking at it, which is a group of residents looking at the financials. You have the board looking at it, so you have, and the auditors looking at it. So you have 3 different groups looking at it independently to make sure that things are clean, that there are no issues taking place. And that's something that I think the layers were put in, and I give the board a lot of credit for that, of implementing that so that there are no things. So you got separate eyes looking at the financials and operations there.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Township.
Obviously, we came in at a difficult time
Right.
in terms of what had happened prior. There was a lot of public trust issues. So, as you noted, we created the 3-legged stool with the residents, the auditors, and the board. And then we put in CARFAC. All 3 talk independent of one another. The auditors meet directly with CARFAC, separate of the administration. The auditors meet directly with the board, separate of the administration and CARFAC, and then CARFAC and the board get together. So that is to ensure that if there is anything that needs to be discussed, it is discussed, and the administration is out. We will be notified through the management letter,
Sure.
but we don't have an opportunity to intervene,
Right.
as was alleged in some of the years prior to us getting here. Going back to the audit comment real quick, because it is important. Some of the weaknesses that existed were some of the simplest things when you're setting up an office environment, like segregation of duties and internal controls, and those were lacking. And one thing that we constantly get pressure on us is the level of staffing. There's always those advocating for less staffing, and it sounds good, and it would be great. But the fact of the matter is that the amount of business activity that is generated by the township requires a certain segregation, which you have to have people to do. It's impossible to segregate duties and have internal controls if you've got one person doing everything. So it's important to understand that to satisfy some of these very, very important audit recommendations and comments, the staffing levels dictate or are necessary in order to achieve that. So there's a balance there, and I think over the last 6 years we've hit that right balance.
Well, and when you look at overall staffing levels are down
Significantly.
And I think that the staff have really performed extremely well, and I can't tell you how proud I am of all the staff across the board in all departments of how they've stepped up, they've performed, and I think that's because they care about the community, they care about their jobs, they care about their co-workers, and they're proud of the tradition that they've been part of, they've created, they've established, and they work hard for that.
Absolutely.
And it's about community. And then when you see the community and the relationship that they've built with the community, that is very unique, I think, throughout this whole region too, of that relationship they have with the residents. And I think that really builds a lot of that pride within the work that they do and the commitment that they do have. So I can't say how proud I am of the entire staff. And again, it always goes to when things get difficult and the challenges, they all step up. And they
Absolutely.
do a great job with that. So. All right, Bill. Well, I know we'll be back talking again here once we get closer to the end of the year and we've formalized the budget there, and we'll go through some of the details of what's approved by the board.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thanks for joining me, Bill.
My pleasure. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Our Township Engineer, Steve Norcini, and our Superintendent of Police, Bill Colarulo. Thanks for joining me.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I know this is a busy time for everybody. I know we got a lot of projects going, and I know, Bill, the department's busy as always. Steve, maybe just talk about a few projects that are going on.
We have some unintended projects going on right now. We have some pretty large sewer issues. The King of Prussia Force Main emergency repair, that's actually starting to wind down, but that's a plus or minus $2 million project. Also, last Wednesday, we came upon a new project, which was the Skunk Hollow trunk line sanitary sewer line, which is leaking, which again is going to be, I don't have the magnitude of that yet, but it's going to be sizable. In the engineering side, this year we are on track, most likely to have the most grading permits we've ever processed. The subdivision land development has been healthy coming through. We have other projects that we're working on that are in the design stage, either from a storm sewer or sanitary sewer side, as well as currently working on budgets for the Stormwater Fund with input from the Stormwater Management Advisory Committee. We have some budget items to work with for the Shade Tree Commission and our normal budget.
Mm-hmm. And I know we just completed the Clemacrone Park project. I know the library's in process right now and moving along. We have park projects that are in, some ready to get launched here shortly out to bid. Some are still in the design phase there. Trails are working. I know we've got some sidewalk projects that are being designed, so a lot going on.
We have 5 projects in the grant stage for sidewalks. One would be the Lancaster Avenue from Garrett to Barleycone. One is on North Wayne Avenue. One is on Glen Mary. And there's another one on Lancaster Avenue. These are all, took a lot of time and effort to get the plans ready for the grant. They are actually all sitting with the grant agency now as they review them. We have a slate full of bond projects, as you noted, for parks and trails that are in various stages. The Clemacrone Park, I think, by anybody's thoughts, it's a success. I see a lot of people there all the time. What a huge joint effort we had with the residents of Garrett Hill, the Board of Commissioners, yourself, Tammy Cohen, the Public Works Department, everybody. It was a real group effort to get that done, and I think everybody's very pleased with the final product. I know I am. From a kid who grew up there, that's like nothing that I saw when I was a young man.
Mm-hmm. Bill, I know that the department's moving along. I know we just hired some new officers and are moving towards accreditation.
Right. Well, you're absolutely right what you said, sir. It is a busy time. All the schools are back in session. All the colleges, we met with them individually. You did allow us to hire 2 new officers. They're getting trained right now internally. We hope that they hit the street in about 2 weeks. Since you've been here, we've increased the number of female officers from 1. We now have 4 female officers. On a positive note, the morale is very high. I attribute that to the supervisors that we have in our department and your leadership. Complaints are non-existent. The neighbors and the department get along very well. We work with the community. On a distressing or concerning note, the opioid epidemic continues on a national level, and it does affect Radnor as well. Whether it's a transient population or the people that live here, it is something that we have to pay attention to. As you are aware, you directed us to give a seminar to the commissioners regarding opioid addiction and drug issues. So that's something that we have to be aware of and we have to be mindful of. I'd also like to take this opportunity to congratulate the other department heads and you on Clemacro, that was wonderful. I was out there for the dedication, just to look at the expressions on the neighbors' faces of how pleased they were, the children and the elderly people too. This was something really good for the community. We continue to have officers trained in riding a motorcycle. We also have officers that are continuing investigative training, whether it's free by the state or it's something that we send officers to. It's important to invest in our officers for the future. So it's a good time. As you know, I'm winding down, and you have a tough decision to make, but I like to think that the department is in a lot better hands since you and I took over than it was beforehand. So
Absolutely.
the future is bright.
Bill, you've done an outstanding job here.
Well, thank you.
One thing I know you mentioned motorcycles. You know, you hear different things with the motorcycles and that, but I know the advantage of a motorcycle that's used. It's not just a showpiece. It's not just for parades. It has its advantage in tight situations and circumstances. You can get up on our trails. It can move around. Maybe just talk about the advantage of the
Sure, our motorcycles, the maneuverability is outstanding. Our officers go through very stressful training with the Philadelphia Police Motorcycle Unit, and it's not easy. We had a couple of officers that washed out that did not make it, but the maneuverability, like we said, the visibility, their ability to respond to areas like the trail or tight traffic jams or floods. Sometimes the motorcycles can maneuver through those areas where a car couldn't. Also, as far as an escort for a VIP or funeral escorts that we use them for, it puts the department in a very positive image, and it represents the township very well.
And those are key because in the past we never had access to the trail. But, you know, moving a vehicle is very difficult. We have more people utilizing our trails, our paths. Parking lots are very difficult to get around with a vehicle. Some of our business districts and that, and I know seeing our officers with the motorcycles within those areas, the visibility in the streets, I know I've heard a lot of positive feedback from residents in all those different areas, behind buildings and that, which it's been outstanding. So I know you hear people say, oh, it's just for show, and it's not. It has a lot of other
That is correct, and if I could just take a moment too to also talk about the K-9 unit that you and the Board of Commissioners allowed us to implement since we've been here. And in this day and age with the increases, the threats you see overseas and even nationally, our dogs are bomb trained and they go through extensive training, as do our handlers. It's not a one and done deal. They have to go through recertification 3 times a year. And they're very well received because as aggressive and as well trained as the dogs can be, they're also very gentle and the kids love them. So.
Good. All right, well, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me, and I know that as we get towards the end of the year, you'll join me again and give me and the community another update on how things are going and with a lot of the projects and activities taking place. So thanks again.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right, joining me now are 2 interim public works directors, Mark Dominick, Steve McNelis. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Guys, I know this is, as I've said with all the other department heads, I know it's a busy time of year. I know things are going to get ramped up here with a lot of things going on. So maybe you just want to tell me what's, in the community, what's going on
Okay.
and what's going to be coming up.
Well, in the sewer department, we're working on a couple big issues. One's King of Prussia Road. I'm sure a lot of people are aware of it. It's went really well as far as when we're on the road, as far as the contractor getting done in like 3 weeks, almost 2,200 feet of pipe slip lined up King of Prussia Road. So it was quite an accomplishment. And it's not an easy task. And being a small company, they really got everything opened in the road. Right now they're in the middle of crossing the creek, get prepared to slip line that side. A little difficult. They ran into a few issues with the old concrete around the pipes and stuff like that, but they're moving right along, and hopefully a couple more weeks we'll have that wrapped up and be back on the regular pump system besides the bypass pumps. We had one pop up this week at Skunk Hollow. A little surprise. Handled it as we always do. It's very important to get everybody on the same page. Everybody was notified within less than 20 hours. We had it stopped. patched. Right now, we're working on a permanent fix. Probably going to slip line also. It crosses the creek, so it's a little different issue with the DEP and the waterways. And we're working on that also. And it was nice of you to come down yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
It was hands-on. And you saw everybody working and all the issues. The camera, you got to see work. And, I mean, it was nice of you to stop down. Everybody appreciated that.
Good.
So, a couple things in the Parks Department. We just had a grand opening of Clemacrone Park down at Garrett Hill. It was quite an event. We were 3 weeks into the end of the project, and we had a little project problem with the contractor, and we all pulled together. The Highway Department, Parks Department, even everybody, the sign department. Pretty much everybody was out there, even the sewer department. So in the last 3 weeks, I can't say enough about the men. So, Little and Steve,
Yep.
his guys, everybody working together. So beautiful park. I can't tell you how many compliments I'm getting. It's full all the time. It really came out nice. And we just capped it off.
Absolutely.
Thanks to you guys for all your support.
Sure.
And making it happen. And we're doing a little work at Petrie Park as we speak. Installing some new benches, trash cans, new picnic table. So we're working our way around. We've got a few more projects on the horizon, and we're moving in the right direction. So
Good.
thank you.
I'll lead off with the, couldn't do what we do without the full support of the staff and the men that work with us. Those guys are really pitching in. They've stepped it up, really stepped it up since Steve left, just to help me and Mark assist us.
You only do so much.
Over on the highway side, we're out putting manholes in ahead of the paving contractor that's coming in. We'll get all our manholes put in, and then they'll come in and pave. We have a crew out doing the inlet cleaning. We're almost done. We'll have hit every inlet in the township, opened it up, cleaned it, marked repairs, and cleaned them out, and we document everything. That way we meet our MS4 requirements. So we're working on that now too. And then coming up, the fleet is getting ready for the leaf season. They're servicing all our vacs, loaders, equipment to get ready for leaves. That's 5 crews. That's everybody, all hands on deck, picking leaves up. Over on trash and recycle, that's ramped up with everybody coming back from school. Everybody's back from vacation. It drops off a little in the summer, but everybody's back and in school, so that's picked up a lot too.
Good. And I know that winter's not too far off, so
That's a good point. Before we set up for leaves, we put all the spinners and plows and everything on the trucks to make sure they work before we go out. And the salt bin is full. You can let Bill White know the salt bin's full. We won't have to purchase salt until the first storm.
I just ordered mine.
Well, and I know I'd mentioned to Bill, we were just talking about the budgets in a previous segment about, it's really the staff that really makes everything work.
Yep.
And the commitment and the dedication and the pride that they have. I mean, the entire staff throughout all the different departments. I mean, they care about what they do, and they what make Radnor, the services here outstanding is because of their commitment and their pride in what they do. And your department really just does an outstanding job. And they're always there in those difficult situations, the storms, the weather events. Like now we have trees that just come down. They're just falling, and we've had this. I'm not going to call them epidemic, but we've seen this over the last several months that we just have trees coming down, no weather events, just dropping. And we've had crews respond quickly to be able to come out, and even in areas where PennDOT response is slow or other circumstances are slow, we've been able to get out and at least clear the area, open up a road, which is good. I know we're building relationships back with, PennDOT, PICO, and, Aqua. Those. So, which is a good thing, that we have. So, and we know we've got paving that's coming up. We know that finally we'll see Conestoga get back to where it needs to be here. Another month they should start, restoring that road. So there are a lot of things going on, a lot of things taking place, and I appreciate both of you gentlemen for what you did, stepping up and, you know, filling the role and doing a nice job with that. So I want to thank you both for the job that you've done.
Appreciate you giving us the opportunity. Really do.
Absolutely. And thanks for joining me on this program. And I know we'll see you probably in another month or so on an update on
All right.
where we are and heading towards that wintry season. So thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Bob.
For having us.